Oh, hi. I'm Sophia.
And I'm Luke.
And this is the
Landscape
Landscape
Architecture
Architecture
Podcast.
Podcast. So, in the first episode, we're very honored to have invited the lecturer of Year 1 Studio.
His name is Max or Maxime Decaudin. I do not know how to pronounce French.
Let's
invite him.
Hi, Max. Welcome to the interview, to the chit chat.
You changed your question.
We didn't.
Oh, latte as we promised.
Thank you so much. So I prepared some answers to your question. I hope you're gonna ask them.
Of course, we're all ready.
You still want me to speak French?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you think you could do a little introduction of yourself first?
Sure. If you answer me in French, of course.
We will try our best as Canadians.
So, who are you?
Bonjour.
Well,
Je m'appelle Maxime Decaudin et j'enseigne le paysage à l'Université de Singapour. You did not understand.
can you say that again in English? Because I don't
Hello. We just heard
So which
that
part-
you're very busy today.
Did you not understand? Which part of the French? Did
hello?
you understood?
Bonjour.
I understood
Bonjour.
part of it.
Bonjour.
Yes, hello.
My name is
My name is
Max.
Maxime.
Je m'appelle Maxime Decaudin
Je m'appelle Maxime.
et j'enseigne, enseigner, you know enseigner.
Massini.
Enseigner is to teach.
I teach at the University of Singapore.
I teach landscape, paysagisme. You know the word? So you attended my lecture where I explained the etymological origin of different landscape words, remember? Sophie, I forgot. She sat in the first row every week.
Shame on you.
I did.
So I had high hopes.
Our first question for you is, you've been in Singapore for a pretty long time. So, what's your favorite place to hang out at STE as a lecturer, or just Singapore in general?
Well, I spent a lot of time on campus, so it was easy for me to think about my favorite place at NUS. I usually like to go to the library,
Wow.
and downstairs from the library there's like this nice cafe that is much nicer than our canteen. Okay, you cut the parts where I criticize CD. He has the shirt.
Open house, people. Open house.
I like to hang out there. Is a nice quiet place, and there's a nice kind of outdoor kind of terrace and looking at
yes.
the trees. Yeah,
Yes.
very relaxing. And in Singapore, I don't have a lot of time to spend like nice relaxing time outside of campus, but I like places with history.
So on that topic of history, I believe you were a doctoral fellow at the French Center for Research on Contemporary China, and then you taught at HKU. You studied a lot of art history, and then you taught at HKU for many years before joining NUS. And I feel like you take a particular interest in lots of art history and Asian landscapes. So I was wondering if you could expand a little bit more on that.
Yeah, so you're right, I did my PhD in art history. So that's why maybe compared to other teachers, my methods are more historical. And my topic came from teaching actually. So when I was teaching landscape architecture in studio, we had a lot of conversations about, how things came about, how come the landscape is the way it is. And I realized, at least in the context of Hong Kong, when I was in Hong Kong, that there was no research done on the landscape history of Hong Kong. And so, a bit naively, like when you start a PhD, you think you can solve big questions and do a lot of things. And so I started looking into the history of how the environment changed in Hong Kong. And I thought, Hong Kong is like, whatever, 107 years old, like I can do a full history, whatever. But actually, it was a lot. As I, dig deeper into the topic, I realized there are a lot of sources. And so I kept reducing my period, historical period I was looking at, and I ended up just focusing on the 19th century. And that's how I discovered the research topic I'm in, the discipline I'm in with now, which is environmental history. So looking at, how the environment changes over time, which I find very important because, landscape architecture is very contextual. Like you always relate to a site and the people who are on the site, but it's important also to read the traces of how it changed, right?
Would you say that it's still relevant to the work that you're doing today? Like, are you doing anything related to that other than teaching?
Yeah, so since I moved to Singapore, I try to bring to Singapore what I learned from the case of Hong Kong. And I realized that actually there were a few books already. There was a little bit of work already done on the environmental history of Singapore, the botanic gardens, on animal. I think there's a good book called Singapore Creatures or Colonial Creatures that you should check out. Currently, I'm doing a research project for NHB, the National Heritage Board, looking at the history of trees and trying to identify the trees that have historical value. But instead of focusing on the colonial period, I decided to look at post-colonial, so since 1965, since independence. So if you want to answer your question, my doctoral research was more on history, and I learned history methods, art history, and now I'm trying to apply it to fields like heritage. How can we value the things that are still around us from the past, and start to evaluate their heritage value.
Yeah, definitely. Well, speaking of career-wise, I see you've done a lot of work around heritage and environment. So, if you could choose a career that's entirely different, if you could start over, maybe think back to your early 20s, like our age, and you could go into a complete different path, is there anything that you would venture into other than landscape architecture?
Yeah, there is instead of teaching, because I think my real passion is with teaching. I mean, I studied architecture, but with the years, I discovered I really wanted to be a teacher. And I think if I was not a teacher, another thing I would do is, I think I would love to be a movie director.
Ooh!
It's very similar to teaching in the sense you tell everybody what to do.
You boss people around.
That'd be really
But for same thing as studio, right? For an artistic purpose, like to make a film, right? Like what an amazing thing, and to direct actors and tell people about the light and the setup and what's the story.
I'm sure you would
script.
still
I
appreciate
would
the
have loved it.
landscapes as in cinema as well.
Yeah, and you tell the cameraman this is how you do it. Yeah, I would have loved that.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have been good at. Maybe in the next life.
What's a quote you live by?
And there is a quote I like by Nietzsche, the philosopher, who said, "Become who you are." And I like that. I think that is a little bit my mindset for teaching, is to support the students to become who they are, as much as possible, and is more kind of self-discovery rather than, I think,
Bring out the best versions of themselves.
Yeah, and I like this idea of becoming, it's like dynamic, it's a process, you're never kind of finished,
We're always constantly learning, even as we grow older.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely related to art and design field. I feel like what I'm so drawn to art and design is because as you're creating, you're also discovering things about yourself, like what you don't like, what you're naturally drawn to, what are you good at, what's your role in the society. And yeah, I think that's a great end note to our interview, actually. Do you have any other questions that we wanted to?
What's the message that you would speak to potentially the whole world if we get popular off this?
The whole world.
The whole world.
That's a very big...
ambitious.
At least I can tell my students. I mean, following up on my quote, I thought, my message to you guys, to potential candidates who wants to join landscape architecture, or anyone who going to university, I think it's important to discover what you're good at and improve on that. Sometimes like there's a bit of this idea that education, you kind of learn things that you didn't know. Of course you do that, like of course that's interesting and you develop your curiosity. But I think the most important is to be able to find out who you are through your experiences, they help you to do that. And also, make your, improve on your strength. I think that's the best way to become better. You guys are very young, so you don't know yet, but when you'll go out in the world, a lot of people will suppress who you are, right? You have to fit in a lot of molds and be in a certain way, and maybe you already feel like that about university, I don't know. But I think it's important to resist that and keep improving what you think you can do better, following your own strength.
Completely.
Forget about your weaknesses.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, don't fix them. Forget about them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because the logic is if you improve on what you're already pretty bad at, you're just going to be very average. But if you improve on what you're already pretty good at, then you're going to be excellent. Right?
Take the two extremes, not the middle.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Wow.
a very interesting way.
Yeah.
All right.
And that's a good way to wrap up. I don't know which camera to look at now,
Yeah.
but that's
Well,
a
that's
great
all right.
way.
Thank you, Max, for joining us for this
Thank
session.
you very much.
Stay tuned for more, and stay rooted.
Stay rooted
Okay.
is a good one.
Enjoy your drink.
Thank you.
Okay.
This is going to need a lot of editing.
Wow.
So much giggling.